Hey, Coach, it's me, Rod. I just can you explain to the guys your philosophy? Because everybody's saying it's zone blitz, but how your rules for the match carry deliver principles was different
Yeah.
than spot drop zones.
Yeah. Uh, the reason I drew those things up, I didn't think I'd take that long. I really didn't I got more philosophy. Uh, here's the thing. I was going to get into some coverage a little bit and some blitz. Uh, I'm a big blitz guy. I'm a stats guy. I took stats all my life, and I studied every play that we called, every defense that we called, and I had them in course grouped in where they belonged: zone pressure, man pressure, whatever. It wasn't zone pressure because it wasn't any. Nobody could do it at that time. But I found at the end of the year that the biggest plays that we made defensively came up on the pressures. We got, of course, more sacks you're going to get, but we would get more interceptions out of pressure on the quarterback. And I started to, after, just a young beginning coach, but after about 3 years, I started to see a pattern developing here that the most productive big plays for us was pressure plays. And everybody pretty much blitzed the same way, and it covered man-to-man zero. And it was also the most risky play, type of play, is blitzes. If they hit you, or if one of your guys just slipped, for instance, there wasn't a free safety who could come over there and buy the play and keep it from being a big play, which is what your whole goal is in defense. So I said, man, how can you do this, getting pressure on the offense and still not sell the farm where you got nobody left anywhere that can help anybody? And that was the beginning concept of zone blitz. There was a Bill Arnsparger. He's an old coach. He became famous on the Miami Dolphins, the only undefeated professional team, NFL professional team there's ever been. He was the defensive coordinator for them. And Bill had begun to fool around with dropping, blitzing two linebackers and dropping one lineman. The game was not as sophisticated as now, and teams only had a couple, maybe three protection patterns that you had to get ready to attack. And Bill had figured out this nice little way that he would load up the guard, and whichever guy the guard blocked, he would drop into an area of the field, and then the other guy would get in on the back all the time. And it was a very, very sound concept. And I looked at that, and he played zone in behind it, just a regular strong zone. And the guy that dropped ended up taking the hook zone over there. And it didn't take offenses too long to figure it out, but Bill was the first guy that I ever saw do that. He was a Ohio guy too. I'm from Ohio, and I stopped. He became the athletic director at the University of Florida, I think. I stopped in there to see him, and I told him, and I knew Bill a little bit, and said I really liked what he was doing and what some of his concepts on defense. Of course, he was working as an athletic director then, and that had been on in the past a little bit. He said, well, Dick, he said, all I was really trying to do was get a safer way to blitz. And I said to myself, I was leaving there and going out to California, and I was in Florida at that time. So that was about a 4-hour flight. And I said, that's exactly what I've been thinking in my mind. If there's a safer way to blitz, well, that's the way to do it. So I got a bunch of cocktail napkins from the airline stewardess, and I just started drawing stuff up on it and started messing around. And that was the first little matchstick, if you will, that started the fire zone blaze. But the time I got off of that scouting trip, I think I had about eight schools. I had 3 or 4 fire zones to start trying to run for our next spring practice that we had coming up, pro football. So that's how it started. And Well, if you're going to do the zone blitz, I would advise you. Everybody's in the 4 wides now, so let's do this. Some form of this. This was King's to us. 3 wides. 3 wides and a quarterback. Well, another coverage that's pretty big now is quarters. And you may or may not like it. Most people play it now to some degree. In quarters, if defending the pass, you got 5 people you got to take care of. However, their personnel, there's 5 can get out. Quarterback can be 6 if he's not under center. He's ineligible under center, but he's back here. And all I ever tried to teach my guys, I didn't worry about him. But if you ever see a quarterback messing around after he did something with the ball coming out over in here or out over in there, I tried to teach our ends, hey, there's a reason he's over there, man. He ain't going over there to pick the grass out of the ground. But I didn't worry too much about that. The main defense people we had to defend were the 5 people that were eligible to catch the ball. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In this case, it's a back, a tight end, and 3 wide receivers. So if you're playing quarters, you got a quarter situation where you got a guy, well, the corners got number 1 to line up, and the safeties have got number 2 to line up. Right, so you've got backers now. There's 3 other guys, and you got backers that are going to be responsible for them. Whether you're playing a 3-man line, a 4-man line, or what, if one of the backers is rushing, or they're all 4 down linemen, you're going to have 3 to match 3 inside, and you're going to have 1 over here, 2 here. So he's going to now have what we call quarters technique, which, going back to how I was telling you, we taught everybody had a technique, and then the physical steps that they took to execute that technique. He's got a rule. He's got to hold number 2 and take 2 to the flat, because the corners could have work stretching out here on number 1. And so he's playing a quarters rule. And if you start getting this kind of crossing stuff coming around here, where you got 2 here, this is 2, and you got 2 here, that's 2. Somebody's going to go build him, and this guy's going to build what we call 3 receiver hook. And he's going to go over here on number 3. He's going to go to 2, and he's going to go to 2. So you got these guys will take the 4 quarters upfield and can match anybody going deep up the field. And then these guys will have to take care of this area and crossing routes, passing, communicating, dropping, and then all matching all the way to the flat, because the corner's gone from the flat. So you should play quarters if you want to play zone blitz and know how to get close to patterns. Because if you just spot drop, they're going to flood you underneath. And as soon as you start pressuring, the quarterback's going to have a quick out with the ball, and you're going to defeat what you're wanting to do with the blitz. And along with blitzing, real quick, this was another thing here that I had on my philosophical must: disguise. You got to be able to disguise your defense. You got to remember, men, the other team's got coaches too. They're looking at video as hard as you're looking at it. They want to win as badly as you want to win. They're going to study you, and they're going to look into everything that you do. So if they got a read on any kind of pressure out of a lineman or something, you're going to probably get beat, because they're going to audible and go to it and get you. So my whole thing was, I was a blitzing coach because I wanted to take away the advantage the offense had of knowing what the play was. They knew what the play was. They knew what the snap count was. They knew what the formation was going to end up being. You had to react to all that. I wanted to create a pattern of defense that they had to react to. And that is not the norm. And that's why I would blitz backers and drop linemen, because they weren't used to that linemen being out here in the flat or being in a particular area to play a rolling pass defense. We had some pretty good laughs with Casey Hampton at 3:30 dropping to the weak hook, but it worked. The point being here, quarters. The quarters ties in exactly with fire zone man rules when you're getting the underneath the match. And that is this. If these guys run into crossing routes where these guys come stack up and move on these two guys here. So these two are matching those. Let's go over here. These two are matching these two right here. If he goes under there and he goes out there, they'll switch it off. If he knifes here and he comes back in under, he'll chase. But they've got to get used to it. It's in your, in the walkthroughs, you'll be walking through every pattern you can think of. But that is the quarters rule. When you tell them you're playing quarters, that's what they'll know right away. If this guy goes here and that guy goes to the flat, well, this guy could run that corner out there. Someone's got to take this guy to the flat, and that's his quarters rule. So when you understand, you're teaching this from day one. As soon as you install quarters, you're installing fire zone coverage. Now, what is the difference? There is a difference. And the only major difference is this. In quarters, you got 4 safeties, 2 corners, 2 safeties, that can get all these sections of the field. So these guys don't have to go vertical with any of these guys. So if you get this guy that's lined up here and they start running vertical up here, you just have to area off, and because you got plenty of people over here that can still take care of the deep zones. But in fire zone, you only got one guy sitting back here on that situation. You got to stretch with the vertical routes. So you'll get help from this guy, but he'll be just like a 3 deep safety, favoring the strength side, the speed side, whatever. But these guys will be matching all routes crossing underneath exactly like quarters. And so when you're playing quarter, I didn't really like quarters that much, but I'd call it in practice a lot because I knew I was repping fire zone coverage then with these guys, the 3 that are matching, 2 on both sides, number 2 on both sides, and number 3, the 3rd guy in. So we would get the reps on the quarters with that, except they didn't have to go vertical. We had the verticals taken care of. But when you got into fire zone, they did go vertical all the way with the guy. The more guys that they spread out, I used to love to see them spread out because I had pressure coming. And the more guys that they spread out, you can say, well, what if they run this deep? And then they better worry about the 5 that's coming. Because the idea with fire zone, you can blitz any 5 you want. And you have to have some design of contain somewhere. But you can go with any 5 guys you want, and you can cover with 3 underneath, and you got 3 corners are going to take number 1. The 3 of the guys that aren't blitzing, are going to match number 2 on either side and number 3. And then you're going to have a safety free. You're still going to have the free safety to roam back there. But the other guys are playing quarters, except they do not have to go vertical. And you have to practice that. You have to walk through a lot of stuff. The other thing that I would say along with that, and where I rep this a lot too, red zone is probably the toughest spot the most crucial spot to defend. Make them kick a field goal down there. They get down there and you make them kick a field goal. You scored 4 points for your team. So we worked a red zone, and the Steelers for about 12 years were in the top 5 in red zone. It was the guys I had, but we had a scheme. We had a good scheme. And we played what we called 4 red zone, which was a match to this type of thing where they were matching 2 and 3, but they didn't have to take care of any of the flat. They could stay in that middle and really, really mess things up in the middle for the opponent. Now, I also like the blitz in the red zone a lot. So that, again, by disguise, they don't know whether we're coming or whether we're going to play fire zone with 4 or whether they're going to play 2-4, which you got all kind of guys sitting around in that pattern then. But on the 4 red zone situation, I wouldn't call it until the ball got to the 12-yard line. That's as far out as I would be. And then the corner would play double zone. Ryan can tell you, he had a flat and he had a deep. And the rest of those guys were playing the quarters rules and passing everything up. And if there's a place that walking through routes will help you more than anything, it's in the red zone. You draw them up on the card, take them out there, walk them through, tell them where they're supposed to go, regardless of whether you're playing. We had red zone 4 and red zone 2, and we played a lot of blitz. That's about all we played. But our guys could match routes out of what we were getting that week predominantly. That was just taken by coaches doing their homework and drawing them up on cards and going out on the field and walking through them and putting them on practice and running them. But that was the advantage of the fire zone match than the spot drop. Spot drop, the reason you're going to be fairly successful with anything you do with it is that you're getting a blitz more, and you're getting the principle of the blitz. You can blitz any 5 guys you want, and you got to overload. You pick any, study your film, anything you pick up, they got a weakness, you can hit that spot. Okay, what areas you talking about? Open side, close side, wide side, short side, up the middle. Those are the areas that I always made sure that I could hit with fire zones. And when I saw a team that had trouble defending that area, that's all they were going to get that day. But you can do that, and you're still pretty safe in behind it. I've told many a coach and many a person, one of the ugliest sights in football is a fire zone gone wrong, man, because you'll see a guy crossing the daylight, and that's not a pretty sight, no matter what you're playing, what you're coaching. So the difference in the way we did it is the match of the underneath routes, basically, and the guys had to carry the vertical.